Young ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again. You are once more very welcome here on the Watchtower Tribune of Consciences. The situation is serious. America declares that Russia is frightening. Nato declares that Russia is frightening. Yes. A very long time ago, we spoke of the unprecedented and incredible strength of Russia. We say that America acknowledges Russia's strength. NATO acknowledges Russia's strength. But this type of declaration, which has just been made on April 4th, 2025, coming from an American general who is a senior NATO official, this type of announcement or declaration has never been made before. This sufficiently proves that Russia is indeed very, very frightening. It is frightening. And so America is sounding the alarm. NATO is sounding the alarm, and Europe must take note. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this video conference, this is the situation we are going to discuss. In what way? What has America seen to be so afraid of Europe and to go as far as sounding the alarm? And it's not just any American who is sounding the alarm. It's a high-ranking official of the American military, an army general. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are going to explore in this video conference, which I humbly ask you to share as widely as possible. Share the video in all possible groups. Give it lots of likes. Let's dive deep into it. Don't forget to click on subscribe to subscribe. And for those who haven't activated the notification bell yet, please do so. This will ensure you don't miss our video conferences. So let's proceed with the official information. According to the information, the Pentagon believes that Russia is well prepared. Russia is well prepared. This is what the Pentagon believes. Yes. So, what is Russia well prepared for? Russia is well prepared in the military and economic fields for a long-term confrontation. Russia is well prepared for a long-term confrontation with Western countries. This is what America observes in the statement made by whom? It is made by the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO forces. In Europe, American General Christopher Cavoli. The statement is made by this American General, Christopher Cavoli. Who is the Supreme Commander of the Joint Forces of NATO in Europe? And these joint NATO forces in Europe, headed by Christopher Cavoli, themselves observe that Russia is very well prepared. Very well prepared, it is ready. For a confrontation, he himself states it clearly, Russia is ready for a long-term confrontation with Western countries. That is to say, he says that Russia is ready both militarily and economically. This means a lot of things. Militarily, we cannot defeat Russia since it has long been preparing for a long-term conflict, meaning a conflict that will last over time. In other words, if today they want peace to return, it doesn't matter. If they want to continue, Russia is always ready. Always ready. Militarily, Russia is ready. But also, and especially economically, Russia is truly ready. You have the proof. Since 2022, they have tried to bring Russia's economy to its knees, but it's impossible. Since 2022, they have not succeeded. Despite continuing to say, well, Russia is sending North Korean soldiers, etc. Russia has no more soldiers. Yes. If North Koreans come to Russia to help Russia, aren't they its partners? Is it forbidden? No, it is not forbidden. But today, they themselves acknowledge that Russia is ready for a long-term confrontation. So, according to American General Christopher Cavoli, Russian leaders have reorganized the military, economic, and social structures of the country to support what they call a long-term confrontation with the West. Russia has reorganized the military, economic, and social structures of the country to support what they call a long-term confrontation with the West. So even on Russian territory, The Russians have prepared themselves for a long-term conflict. This is stated by an American general, the head of NATO's joint forces. This means that he himself is afraid. He knows that the troops he has cannot withstand a long-term conflict. No, they cannot. Not at all. But they observe that Russia is ready. They have intelligence services. How, on the ground in Russia, the Russian authorities are preparing their citizens for a long-term conflict financially? I said, how? To avoid not just the long-term conflict, meaning a conflict that will last over time, affects the Russians. They are ready on all levels. So what's happening is that America is sounding the alarm. What is ridiculous is that it's the head of NATO's joint force making this statement. So, these are systemic changes that demonstrate Russia's intention to confront the West in the near future. So, it's about a systemic change, meaning that Russia has undertaken a radical change, a profound change of its economy, of its military structure, and everything that follows to enable Russia to confront the West in the near future, but in a conflict that can last a long time, even resembling the war of the Peloponnesus. So, according to Mr. Cavoli, Russia is seeking to gain geopolitical advantages and to deprive NATO of them. According to General Cavoli, Russia also intends to build a global regional power. So, in reality, what is happening is very complicated. NATO itself is sounding the alarm. This gentleman continues, he doesn't stop there. In the commander of NATO's armed forces in Europe, General Cavoli, also stated that Europe had requested the deployment of long-range hypersonic weapons on its territory. So, Europe is also getting ready. Europe is preparing. Since they already know that Russia is prepared, it is ready, finished. But they too, on their side, it would be necessary for Europe to prepare. So, he continues, he says there is a request for the deployment of one of them. Hypersonic system in Europe. I could talk to you about it behind closed doors. So, he doesn't want to say it publicly, but he's already announcing that Europe is getting ready. In accordance with what he said earlier, Europe is indeed preparing, but having observed that Russia is ready for a long-term conflict, he already acknowledges that against Russia, they can do nothing. They cannot. So, it's a fear. They are sounding the alarm to certainly allow themselves to organize and to face a Russia that does not lower its guard, that does not give up. So, ladies, young ladies and gentlemen, that was a piece of international news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. And check if you have activated the notification bell. If it hasn't been done, it needs to be done. Thank you. I will get back to you shortly with more news. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.